Yeah.
All right, Adam, now you can hear us? Adam Kostanek?
Just a chat going on.
Yeah. Anyone online able to hear?
All right, so the sound is coming through the Zoom meeting, which is the piece in this.
Is it plugged in on that side also?
Yeah, it is. Can anyone hear us?
Can?
Oh, yes, hey, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, wonderful. Well, it's a little after 9 o'clock, but it is Friday, August 28th. I'd like to call to order the Special Administration Committee meeting. So let's do a quick roll call, please. Can you do that, Cindy?
Bob Long,
Here?
Kara Cook,
Here we go.
Scotty Yard,
Present.
David Peterson,
Here.
Bill Peavy.
Bill, unmute. Unmute, Bill.
Bill? Bill Peavy?
Can you hear us, Bill?
He's talking.
Did you unmute your mic?
Oh, you need to.
Did you unmute your mic?
Yes. Did.
Can you hear us okay, Bill?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Okay, I think we're back in business. Just to point out, we do have Supervisors Cook and Peavy on Zoom, as well as Adam Kastanek and Tara Davies-Fox. And we're fortunate to be joined by Bob Slavin and Dave Krings. Welcome, gentlemen. There is approval on the minutes on the agenda, but I don't believe there was any minutes included in the agenda, so we'll move right into the business items. First item being the contract for the county administrator's search.
Tara, do you want to talk about the contract or?
Sure, I can. I think we just wanted to decide if there's any changes we wanted to make, or if we wanted to sign it as the proposal was sent. There was another document sent over from Slavin that was the actual agreement. So I think we just need to decide if we want to go ahead and sign that, or if there's any discussion we want to have with Slavin before signing it.
Yeah, there's just a few minor changes that I would have. Nothing substantive unless the committee wanted other changes.
Any other changes from the committee? I certainly didn't see anything, so Scott will take your lead on this if there's any other minor modifications, and we'll get that taken care of. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, the search process and timeline. So I guess maybe I will turn it over to Bob and or Dave for a little discussion on your suggestions in terms of the process that you would recommend us following, and also would include creation of a search committee, so to speak.
I suggest we might want to introduce the committee to them and
Oh,
maybe have us
that's a
introduce
great
ourselves
idea.
so they know who we're dealing.
Okay, well, I'll just start. I was unfortunate enough to be chair of this committee, but I'm Bob Long, and I've been on the county board for a number of years and resident in the area for about 30 years, so it'll be a pleasure to work with you. Supervisor Peterson.
Dave Peterson, I'm the county board chair and been on the county board since roughly 2010 or so. I guess I'm referred to as a fossil.
Supervisor Ard.
I am Scotty Ard. I'm the Vice Chair of Administration, and I have been in and out of County Board for a number of years.
Oh, there we go. Supervisor Peavy.
Yeah, I'm Bill Peavy, over in the eastern half of the county. Been on, if Dave Peterson's a fossil, I'm an old fossil. Been on the county board a long time and happy to be here.
And Supervisor Cook.
Hi, my name's Kara Cook. I'm the supervisor for District 5. This is my first term back. I was on the county board for a short time a few years ago, but looking forward to working with you as part of this search.
Thank you. And Bill and Dave, please feel free to introduce yourselves as well.
I'll start. I'm Bob Slavin. Company is named for me. I started it a number of years ago. I've been in the executive recruitment business and for local government executives for a long time now. I don't know what you folks call yourselves, but I feel probably older than any of you. I feel like a fossil. We've done recruitment work for local governments and nonprofits all over the country, and for cities, counties, special districts of all sizes, and then all states except I think maybe Montana. We haven't worked for Montana and one of the Dakotas, but we've our track record is we focus on primarily chief executive officers, chief administrative officers, and our track record of success is very high. We've been involved in more than probably 900 now recruitments in the categories that I just mentioned, and only and you probably noticed in our proposal that there's a number of guarantees, but one of them is that if for any reason the job is vacated within the first 2 years of a hire, we'll redo the work for no additional fee. And we've honored that commitment 4 times. We're doing one now. It was 3, and the first time we did it was because somebody died within the first 2 years. The second time was somebody quit on their own within the 2 weeks before the 2 years was up. And the third time, somebody took a job in a city manager job with the city council, and between the time he accepted and the time he was to start, the majority of the council changed. He wasn't unhappy. They weren't unhappy. The new council wasn't unhappy with him, but not only did the members change, but the direction, policy direction, changed from no growth. I mean, from pro-growth to no growth, and he wasn't comfortable with that, so he didn't. He actually started and served for an interim period, but then he quit. So the last time was the only time anybody was actually let go, and and that's going on now. It's a community in the Midwest. And frankly, we're trying to, we being the client, and my company is trying to figure out how the person, everything about him was very positive, including all the referencing and all the work that we did to check into his how he handled his work. And previously and then his behavior changed radically when he almost immediately when he started this job, and it became a situation where, at our recommendation, they let him go because we thought if that behavior ever manifested, he could correct it, but if it's intrinsic to his personality and it ever manifests itself again, it could be dangerous. So at any rate, my point was that with all the work we've done, we've been very successful. Our placements have served more than certainly more than the average tenure of a city or county administrator by far. And so, company. Well, first of all, extraordinarily pleased to be working with you folks. Dave and Pat Thompson have something in common. They were both county administrators in Hamilton County. Dave first, and then did Pat follow you, or was there somebody in between, Dave?
No, he's my immediate successor.
So they have had some similar experiences. And real point is that Dave's been a county manager in a couple of very major places, and a deputy county manager in Ramsey County, Minnesota. And you're from Wisconsin, am I right?
That's right. I grew up in Kaukauna, Wisconsin.
And educated in Wisconsin. So,
Carroll College and the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
the process we use, we pretty well outlined in the proposal. We modified a little bit now as this is a modification of what we would normally do because of the coronavirus. But it begins with a very strong effort to find out what you're looking for. We don't have any preconceived ideas about that, nor do we have anything we pull off a shelf and hand to you as a product, but we create the product through discussions with you folks. There are 19 of you, and it'll be up to you as to how you want us to do that. I know you have a committee system, so we need to find out what your expectations are, but quite normally we would spend 45 minutes, an hour with each of you in a session that is confidential. We learn a lot. We ask for candor, and we commit to not sharing any thoughts or quoting anybody, but rather learning. So that's how we know. And normally we would spend time there, and hope to do that in the near future. But right now that's not possible. And while there, we would want a tour of the organization of the county, which is large. I guess you've got us over 700 square miles. So. But at least the highlights of it, we would want to talk with some of your senior folks. Certainly want to talk with the elected officials. Hopefully we will have an opportunity to do that in person, but if not virtually. I don't know about the tour, but the rest of it. What we're doing during that period of time, and it's critical to the success of the process, is learning about St. Croix County and what and its culture, what's there, what the client you folks are looking for. And we condense that into what we call a recruitment profile. Have you take a look at it. It's a composite of what you've told us and what we've learned. Have you take a look at it. Usually there's some adjustments that need to be made from the first draft. But once you approve it, that's our set of marching orders. And we don't stray from those marching orders one bit unless we're having unless something occurs that causes you to want us to change it, or we find ourselves having trouble finding what you're looking for, and then we let you know that. The process involves a variety of different processes to recruit, or techniques to recruit, including more traditional advertisements and professional associations. In this particular case, it would be the primary one would be the city ICMA, the International City County Management Association, but also Wisconsin and probably neighboring Midwestern associations. Also very much with increasing frequency, we're using social media and the platforms and technology platforms. And you talked about time frame. The fact that so much of our work now is internet based. The process is designed to take 90 days from the time you approve a recruitment profile to the time you're interviewing. The virus has affected that a little bit, but the point I was leading to is that now in with today's technology, everything is almost instantaneous. Information is available to people we're trying to make aware of the opportunity immediately. used to be when we put an ad in the International City County Management Association, we had to wait for a physical publication to take place. And now if we place an ad at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we'll start getting responses by the end of the day. That's not our primary source. It may be the primary source of resumes, but in addition to that, we do networking, and so we will identify people. Once we know what you're looking for, we'll identify people who meet that criteria, and we'll contact them directly, provide them information about the position, and ask them to apply. But because we began to get responses immediately, we need to be prepared to move rather quickly. If we start getting outstanding candidates responding early on, we'll really want to alert you to that and have you just make some decisions about whether or not we want to respond to those people. Maybe not quite as they come in, but in groups, so that what we're trying to avoid is letting these people who may be well qualified wait too long and then maybe take other jobs before we're finished. So, well, our what we have been doing, what the technique we've been using, is keeping the jobs open till filled, with some review dates built into it, and not closing the job until it's actually filled. But it does allow our clients to take a look at progress we're making as we're making it, and decide with our recommendation or advice as to whether or not you feel comfortable enough for us to focus on good prospects shortly after they expressed an interest. The process is very thorough. We do a lot of work to ensure that people are who they say they are. Do a lot of background work, which includes several features. One of them that is unique to our company is actual site visits to the candidates, at least the finalist candidates' present work locations. That has become a little difficult. We've had to do some virtual site visits because of the coronavirus. Hopefully that will change. And actually, the on-site, in-person visit to the community is we find of great value, and you can't duplicate the value of that through Zoom. And what it intends to accomplish is getting not just an interview, but getting to see people in their work location. Nobody knows why we're there but us and the candidate, but we like for them to show us where they work and walk us through their city or county office building, walk us around town a little bit, maybe have lunch with them, and see how they interact with people who they know, who are not who they encounter without notice. So it gives us, and what we're looking at is not the not necessarily determine whether or not what they've told us in a resume or a cover letter is accurate, but how they interact with people, what their interpersonal characteristics are. That will become an important part of what we do for you, is try to match not just the education and experience qualifications, but the, as Dave calls them, soft skills, how they do what they do, rather than not just what they do, but how they do it. That's been very helpful to us, and we think it's part of the reason we've been as successful as we have in our placements and in the average tenure of our placements. We keep you informed. We'll need to talk to you about how you want us to do that. We can, and who you'll want us to be dealing with. There's two of me on the screen now. I don't know. We normally would and would recommend strongly that you assign a liaison contact for us, whether it be Tara or somebody else. It should in the organization, it should be somebody who can be objective, that and that will and their function will be to exchange information. Some of it written, most of it will be written, but some of it will be in the form of confidential. Could be in the form of confidential information that needs to come directly to you with and be protected from premature disclosure. Candidate background and resumes would be an example of that. and we need help setting up meetings and hosting Zoom meetings or setting up physical meetings. So the you're very much a part of how we will develop the candidates. We'll narrow it to a group of people who meet your criteria closely, and then we'll ask you to take a look at that group, and there'll probably be 10 or so of them, and to review with us those candidates. You'll have their resumes, their cover letters, and then they will have completed a supplemental questionnaire, which is designed along your criteria from your profile. But it is a narrative document, and it's very frequently is 5 to 10 pages long, depending on how much the candidate wants to provide. But it gives you some insight into what they've done, how they've done it, what their management style is, why they're interested in your job, what their present compensation expectations are, and if they've had difficulty in their previous jobs in terms of being asked to leave or being accused of inappropriate behavior. So all of that you'll have, and then we'll ask you to narrow that group. Let's assume there are 10, and we'll ask you to rank those 10 and come up with maybe a top 5. And once we have the top 5, that's when we'll do the site visits and the in-depth background work, which includes certainly referencing, I go back at least 10 years, credit, criminal, civil records, national criminal records, sex registry, review their Social Security, how many times that is, that number appears, and why. Education, anything, and all particularly certainly their college and graduate degrees, and also any certifications that they claim. So once and then referencing, and you'll have summary reference information plus the results of all those other tests or checks. Then we'll be with you while you are interviewing candidates as a resource. We'll help you, we'll guide you through the process, provide you information about the candidates. We'll provide you all the information we have about the candidates. We'll provide you with questions, rating sheets, and then guide you using a process to narrow the finalist group to maybe to the one you want or that you want to select. Then we'll work with you to negotiate the terms and conditions of employment, and then we guarantee our work for at least 2 years. So long-winded, but if you've got any questions of either of us, and Dave, if you've got anything you want to add to my long-winded presentation, go.
Yeah, I do a little bit, Bob. One of the factors that I'm sure we'll have to explain to candidates who are not involved with counties in Wisconsin or Illinois, and that is actually the large boards are a pretty good system. And I was a county administrator in Peoria County, Illinois, where I had 27 board members. And constantly, when I later became president of the National Association of County Administrators, and I was president of the International City County Management Association. And when I'm speaking with peers from around the country who are used to maybe 5 or 7 member boards, they have a hard time grasping the committee system and why that can be and is an efficient system. I think we're fairly uniquely qualified to explain that to our peers around the country. One of the things that the committee system can do, and we intend to take advantage of, is that working with a committee, decisions, at least recommendations, can be made fairly quickly. And when we're dealing with quality candidates who have other options available to them, it's very important that we can get feedback fairly quickly. Um, we've got another client that's not set up in the same manner that we've been dealing with since January and have lost quality candidates as a result because they just can't make up their mind. Your minds will be made up for you if you don't fairly quickly make up your mind that people will leave, the quality ones will leave. And I'd like to turn it back to y'all. If you have questions for us, we'll both take them.
Yeah, Dave Peterson, board chair here. For Dave, my thought is for selection committee would be our board or our committee chairs, as well as I think we've identified one civilian member that would work well too. So any thoughts on that, and at what point would we want to have that committee ready to go?
Well, I think fairly soon. I always dealt with, we called it the Management Services Committee, which was the same kind of a makeup that you just described. And so that certainly, they don't have the bottom line. They don't do the hiring. Everything is a recommendation to the full board. But when you've got all the committee chairs involved, the likelihood of the board following the recommendation is pretty high. And we wouldn't have any problem explaining that part of it to the potential candidates. So I think your system is a very good system.
Thank you.
Laura, I was just wondering if we would want to possibly include another county administrator within our area, just because they will be working closely and they may have have input to offer. It's just a suggestion if we'd want to consider that.
I guess my thought is we could take input, but I don't feel that I would be comfortable having them on a selection committee, no.
Okay.
I'll got to follow up with a couple other questions for you, Bob and Dave. That means our selection committee would be basically 7 people, or 6 people, if I'm adding correctly.
It's how large is how many committee chair persons are there?
Yeah, we have 5 committees, so there's 5 chairs along with the county board chair, but and the vice chair, but the vice chair is also a committee chair. So is that size, plus one of our public members, is that size workable, too big, too small from what your experience has been?
How available are they to meet? Part of the problem with the client that David was referring to is that it's a 5-member city council, and one of the members travels, and the council is divided. So without him, it's a 4-4. I mean a 2-2, and it's been real difficult to get them to agree to anything. But one of the problems is they have a hard time finding coordinating their calendars. So if that's not a problem, and we can be pretty sure about being able to coordinate calendars, 7 is not an unusually high number for us.
I think our committee chairs are pretty workable with each other, and if perhaps 1 or 2 would not be able to be at a particular meeting, I don't think that would be an issue. We could fill them in or whatever, but I think that would be workable. Bob?
I think they all understand the importance and the critical nature of what we're doing, so they would make sure that they would be available as needed. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. A follow-up question, it sounds like creating this profile is really the first step. So how long do you believe that process would take with that size of a search committee?
We need an hour each of your time. We can schedule that virtually, and I know Tara is very diligent about setting those meetings up. So if we could have her set those meetings up, but my week next week is pretty open. It's got some things, but not much. And Dave and I do that together. We've been doing that all week with another client. So I don't, if we can set the, and that client is 11, was 9. So we could do that pretty quickly. There are some things we need that we don't have that we'll talk about in a minute to do that. You have in the proposal a copy of I think you've got maybe 2 copies of previous recruitment profiles that we've used. The document that we would intend to prepare for you would be similar to those. So we need photographs and we'll get to that in a minute. So we could start that right away and then get a draft back to you, and then it usually doesn't take very long for you folks to review, and that would be one of the functions of the liaison that I described earlier, would be to receive that draft from us and distribute it to you, and then for you to get it back to whoever that is, and her, assuming it's Tara, or get it back to us. It will take some adjusting, and it might take 2 times to get it right. But if you're committed to getting this thing, this profile accomplished quickly, then it should happen pretty quickly. In addition to the profile, there will be an announcement, which is and more like a classified ad. It's a little longer than most of the classified ads you see, but it would come as a draft along with the profile. It's written from the profile, so it shouldn't take long. Once it's approved, we have our okay to start. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
I said we can't stress enough the importance of this initial step, because this gives us some direction as specifically what you want. And Bob mentioned earlier, we can, the hard skills, the hard parts of the background, with, what's the education, what's the experience, and all that. Well, anybody can put that kind of a thing together. But if, Bob mentioned that out of the hundreds of searches done by the firm, only 4 times did we have to do one over. And then the major reason for that is that we take a good look at what we call the soft skills. If you decide that you really want somebody with a real command and control kind of an attitude, and we get you a collaborative person, that person isn't going to last long, regardless of what the person's education and experience background is. So we want to make darn sure that that person fits in with the St. Croix County culture, and we need to learn what that culture is, and we learn it from you all.
Am I able to ask a quick question? This is Tara again.
Hey, Tom.
I'm wondering, do you meet with anyone outside of the hiring committee as far as like department heads or other staff within the county? I know you mentioned elected officials and committee.
Yes, we typically do, and thank you for asking. Normally we'd come there, spend the time talking with the committee members, but while there, we'd want to talk with key department heads. I'm not sure. We need an organization chart. That's one of the things I'm going to need. I don't know how many of them there are, but we could do that virtually too. If it's appropriate and it would work well, we can do that in small groups of department heads, so that we don't need it. And usually those meetings can be a little less than the hour we'll want with the committee members. But we learn a lot from talking with key staff folks. I mean, they're in the building 40 plus hours a week, and quite often the elected officials aren't. So we learn a lot about what happens on a day in and day out basis from them. We work for the board, and there's no question in our mind about that. So if there's any conflict between what anybody wants and what the board wants, the board wins. But that's one of the best sources of information. And it also gives us a real insight into the culture of the organization.
Great, thank you.
Let me caution though, and I just said that we know who we work for, and it's the board. There have been some times that the elected body is not pleased with the staff, And the only an example comes to mind where that was the case, and one would think that the elected body was wrong, but in evaluating the way that organization performed, not the quality of the people, but the way they interacted with each other, the elected body was right. Happy ending was that the manager that was hired was able to bring that group together as a team, and most of them survived. So, but Dave, you're yeah.
Dave
We also
Peterson.
have the situation with, of course, with the separately elected officials. And, we would take your advice on who all you would like us to consult with. Most times when we're dealing with a county, the board does want us to speak with the elected officials, separately elected officials. It's entirely up to you. But as Bob stressed, we understand that we work for you. But finding out if there's a consensus as to what's desired, which includes the separately elected officials, is often valuable to the elected board.
Yeah, and again, we assure people we won't quote them. We tell you what they said, but we won't tell you who said it.
Okay, Dave Peterson here again. I've got two questions for you. One, neither Bob or I are advocating, I guess, a rush job on that profile, but that is a high priority. Yeah, we do want to get going on that as soon as we can. And I think both of our take, at least on these elected officials, yes, we'd want you to interview all. Also, I have questions on the liaison. And I don't want to put anybody on the spot here, but Tara would be actually working for whoever we select. So my thought is, and I'll take input from our corp counsel here also on this, but Cindy comes to mind as maybe a liaison, but I know she's got an election coming up this year, and I don't want to load work on her. But I would take suggestions from folks here that who might be a good liaison, so I'll go from there.
I'm not sure that even though that the administrator will be supervising and has the authority to, terminate employment of the HR director under Wisconsin law, I think that the logical choice is probably the HR director. But I could be convinced otherwise.
I can deal with that, so I'm okay with the HR director if everybody else is. So.
I would agree that seems to be the logical choice. So, and I'm okay, I'm comfortable with that.
Only comment I have about that is if the candidate base begins to, if internal candidates begin to apply, you may want to rethink that. That has happened, and we've adjusted, but HR is some of the information we're going to need is HR type information, so it makes sense to us to have her be our liaison.
Okay, so where do we go from?
Okay, so,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say I was just going to, nothing, never mind what I was going to say. I was going to say I can be very objective, and I will be the liaison.
Great. Thank you, Tara. I'm sure you will be objective.
I was going to say, I think I was just voluntold, but I was just joking, so.
Well, that's good news for us because she's been outstanding, diligent. One of the things we need is to make sure is that things happen kind of quickly. And I realized that we were not available all the time. Some of the times that you were available this week, and I apologize for that. It was just that we had some commitments. So once we get commitments to make commitments to you, then somebody else might suffer that situation that you folks did this week, because we won't change time that we committed to a client to accommodate another client. So we're ready to go. There are some things I need. should I talk to Tara about those things? There's things like org charts and photographs and I had things that we need and Chamber of Commerce type information about the county, what the quality of life there, and what might attract somebody to it that's never been there, doesn't know anything about it. If there's something that's there that saves us trying to be creative, really trying to be creative, less factual rather than creative about describing the county, would be useful for us.
Adam, probably.
Org chart, I mentioned
Adam,
photograph.
you should
Is there a job description
Adam?
for this job?
Yeah, I think that might be well served by Adam Kostanek. I got that last name right, Adam. Who is what's his title?
Public information, I believe. Adam is in the Zoom meeting here also.
Yep, I'm the Public Information Officer for St. Croix County. So I can help with pulling that information together, and I'll work with HR to develop a job description.
Okay, well, one of the reasons I was asking about if there's an existing one is sometimes when there is, the requirements are built into some kind of a ordinance or a resolution, or in some cases, charter language that we need. If it exists, we need to know about it.
Yeah, so I think we have some general information on the county, but I would like to pull that information together and see if it needs to be updated. I'm relatively new in this position, so this will be a good exercise for me.
Adam, that's great. When we do it, it may look good and sound good, but it may not be accurate. When you do it, it'll be accurate. So usually that particular part of the profile can take more time than the other more technical, direct parts of it, like issues and job requirements and characteristics. So that would be very helpful.
Sounds good. And the only thing I'll need to know is when you need this by.
I'm guessing as soon as we can get it.
Okay.
We won't produce a document until after we've spoken with the people that we need to speak to. So we got a week or 10 days or so, but assuming that we can get these virtual interviews conducted within the next a week to 10 days, it'd be that time frame.
Sounds good. I'll work on that.
And Tara is the liaison, then would you be able to provide Bob and Dave with the contact information for the members of the search committee so that we can get those interviews and part of that profile going?
Yes, I can do that.
That'd be great. And department head, we can do a combination of Zoom meetings and telephone calls, depending on what's easiest for people to accommodate people's situation.
Okay, so we've got the process started. Other questions, other details that we should be discussing at this point? Because if Adam can provide the information, Tara can provide the contact information, we'll get the profile process started. Anything else that we need to be addressing at this point?
As Bob mentioned, we can do the Zoom type of a interview or a telephone interview. You just need to let us know what your preference is. And it doesn't have to be consistent across the entire board. Just let us know as soon as possible. Our schedules are pretty flexible at this point. Let us know and we can get started.
Will someone be able to provide me with the community member that's going to be participating, that information or who contact?
Yeah, that will be all the standing committee chairs, and I'll give you the public contact after the meeting today. And
Yeah, okay, great.
That was it. So.
Okay. Any other discussion, any other comments, Bob and Dave, before we kind of move on?
I think I'm good. Dave?
Yeah, I'm anxious to get started.
Yeah,
Good. Well,
Dave really has a soft spot in his heart for Wisconsin. Every time we've had the opportunity to either go there or to work for a Wisconsin jurisdiction, you can see the excitement, hear the excitement in his voice and see it in his eyes. So he's real pleased about this. As are we. Oh, well, the question is, Pat's still there, or has he left yet?
He's in Illinois at this time.
He's in.
Yeah, he started his new job on Monday.
Wow. So I was confused as to which Winnebago County he was going to work for, and Dave is sure. I thought it was Illinois, I guess. But then we thought, well, it could be Wisconsin. But then Dave told me there's a third state that has a Winnebago County.
Iowa.
Actually, Rockford, Illinois. Yeah.
Yeah. We figured that out yesterday by Googling Illinois, Winnebago County, Illinois, and he was the first item on the that popped up. So.
Dave, if you're available after this meeting for maybe a 10-minute chat or so, I'd like to give you a call and just have a brief conversation with you.
With me?
With Dave?
Yeah.
Dave Peterson, yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Dave Peterson. Oh.
So, yeah, I'd like to, for Dave Cranes, I'd like to speak with you maybe after this meeting if you have 10 minutes or so.
Oh, certainly.
We probably ought to give you his contact information.
Sure, that'd be good.
Phone number, Dave, you want to?
It's 513-200-4222.
Okay, thank you, and I'll give you mine as well. I don't have my county board number here right now, but I'll give you my personal number if that works for you. My cell would be 715-781-1968.
Got it.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time. It was very informative. We'll keep the process moving, and I think one of the key things is make sure that we keep in touch and communicate as much as we can. So,
There was
okay,
another
yeah.
agenda item, and I don't know if the committee and the consultant wants to address it now or perhaps down the road. But the county administrator has a current job description. And I would ask just what, if any, role would the consultant play in providing some direction or suggestions for edits, amendments to the job description? It's been in place, the position's been in place for approximately 10 years. I think that the job description that was provided was developed through the process of grading and evaluating salaries here in the county. So just any comments that anyone, what do you see your role as being involved in the job description, perhaps refining it?
Part of the development of the profile has obviously is it contains a lot of the same information that would be in a job description. You've just done a class and comp study and implemented it. Was there a new job description for county administrator developed as part of that process?
So the most recent job description we have was from May of 2018 when it was last updated. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, if it's up to date, then well, an answer to your question, we'll look at it and give you our thoughts about it. It's helpful for us because it sets up. They usually set up minimum qualifications for the job. And that's very helpful for us. And sometimes those jobs, and we will be very interested in what it says about that, because if they're too generous and they don't doesn't allow enough criteria to really screen resumes. In other words, if it's so broadly written that anybody that is interested could apply, and we couldn't use data-based criteria to eliminate them, then we would have a comment. If it is so tight that it eliminates more just by definition, more people than it should, we'll want to talk to you about that too. So yeah, it's important. I assume it's well written, if it, but we'll give you our comments about it.
Yeah, and I do think I have recommendations that I can discuss with you or the committee, but I do think there are some changes that we should make. It's very long and tasky, and it does have a very limited requirement for education. It only allows a master's in public administration, and so I was going to suggest some changes to that. So I can share those.
Yeah, and it also
that would be helpful to have that. You know, we can't change it obviously, but you can. And on that particular point of the graduate degree, most people will have it, but what if they had a degree in business administration, not public administration, and have been a manager in a community, a city or county for a number of years? I think you need to think about that a little bit.
Right, I agree.
The experience requirement, going from memory, is 10 years. And that might
correct. It is. Oh.
That might be too limiting.
10 years of executive level experience in a local government, or 10 years as an administrator?
It's 10 years experience in a progressively responsible management position in a complex organization, and then 5 years senior management level experience in public sector. Those are the two requirements for experience.
My reaction to that is that it's okay, but Dave, your thoughts about that? What I'd like to see is some numbers out there that make some that are tied to a legitimate or a bona fide occupational qualification, or makes sense. In other words, if it gets much, if it just says needed to be a county manager and or an assistant in a comparable organization, that's too loose. The 10-year total would include, and plus 5 years at executive level, I think is okay.
I have a question on, we have a salary grid that was also with that study. And one of the, Tara had a question of what range of that grid we would want to advertise in, but do you think we should put limits on it, or I guess your suggestion on that might be informing?
Dave's on mute, so we're gonna have to get him off mute because he was saying something. We would propose to advertise the job open and competitive without putting a number on it. We need to know what that range is, and it's new, so apparently was developed as a result of a study of the market. But the reason that we recommend marketing the job without a number is that if the number is a little bit too low and you'd be willing to pay a little bit more, people who you otherwise might be interested and won't apply. If the number is too high, you'll never pay a nickel less than that. So we need to know what your thoughts are and where your comfort level is, but we find you putting numbers out there to be sometimes counterproductive.
We'll certainly review what you have right now. But if there's going to be any significant changes from whatever you send us, that needs to be done pretty quickly, because we certainly don't want to do a recruitment and then get, somebody or some bodies that don't meet your criteria.
Dave, you were on mute when you may have answered this question, but the 10-year total and 5-year executive or management level, I don't have a real problem with. Do you have?
No, I don't. I think the key is the 5 years with the public sector experience. And it didn't sound to me like they were limiting it to, county administrator experience, city manager, village, township, would be okay. Yeah, or even military should be okay. And I think that, that fits that definition.
It's good conversation. We'll take a look at it, but I agree with Dave. If you can modify it so that you're comfortable with it before sending it to us, that would be helpful.
I don't think, at least in my opinion, we're thinking of modifying it. I was just, wanted your input on, whether we should or shouldn't put numbers out there, but I don't think.
No, it's I'm more concerned about the requirement for an MPA. If that's hard and fast, that will eliminate people, qualified people. And, lawyers.
Oh, sorry, I could maybe make a few minor edits and send it back out to the committee. Would that work? And then decide if you want to go that route, just maybe change the degree requirement a little bit.
I think, Tara, any edits that you feel are appropriate would be welcome to be reviewed by the committee. I would also think that there may be some additional changes, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob and Dave, as a result of creating this profile.
It's the profile should be consistent with the job description. So
Okay.
if the job description is okay, then you'll see it reflected in the minimum requirements included in the profile, and also those that are included in the what in essence is a classified ad, an announcement. So they have to be right. But the time to, as Dave indicated, the time to make sure they're right and that you're satisfied with them is now. It will. The job description, assuming it's right, will feed the profile and the announcement. The other parts of the profile is much broader than a job description. It'll borrow heavily from it in those technical areas, but it'll also discuss issues that the administrator is going to face simply because it's St. Croix County and it's now. It'll it'll have characteristics of the preferred of the ideal candidate. Some of those things will go beyond what a typical job description would address, and we will add those. If you wanted to then add them to a job description, you could, but I'm not sure that would be appropriate because the job description sets minimum standards.
Well, any feedback you have for us on that actual job description would be appreciated.
We'll do it.
Okay, other comments, anything else at this point that we believe we need to discuss? Okay, well, seeing none, again, we appreciate your input and look forward to our relationship, Bob and Dave, and we'll try to keep the balls rolling as quickly as we can. Thank you.
And we'll be as responsive as we can possibly be also. So it's a pleasure. Thank you, folks. Looking forward to this.
Thank you. Okay, seeing anything else, I guess we will adjourn for today. And I'm sure we'll be meeting again shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye now.